Out of the gates, and we're off and running on another edition of Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Today's show is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Plans starting at just $15 a month on America's largest 5G network. Sign up now at mintmobile.com/chatsports. On today's show, we are narrowing down the Seahawks roster to 53. The Seahawks already made roster cuts just a few days ago to get the roster down to 80. Now I am giving you my final roster projection before it's all said and done. We will get to that in one moment. Before we do, though, this week, your Seattle Seahawks taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Final preseason game of 2022. And we are battling Tom Downey and the Cowboys report here on the channel in likes. We're a bit behind, though. 608 likes to theirs. Over 1,300. So we got some catching up to do. Like today's video, and we'll get started with today's show. Let's begin with a roster update as the Seahawks made a small change. They have waived offensive guard Shamarious Gilmore, and they signed tight end Cade Brewer. Brewer was released over the weekend, but I guessed we saw Pete Carroll and company decide that John Schneider, that, you know what, they slept on it, and they kind of regretted the decision they made. So with that, that's the decision they go with. Don't expect that to be a big deal because either player was going to get cut and miss the 53-man anyway. So with that said, let's break this down position by position here. Starting with the quarterbacks, I have Geno Smith and Drew Lock making the roster. Don't know who's going to start. That's not my problem to figure out, but I do have those guys making it for Seattle with Jacob Eason getting cut. Could very well see Eason on the practice squad, but as far as the active 53-man, don't see that happening. You only have to carry two quarterbacks. In today's NFL, there's no reason to carry more than two quarterbacks. It will be Geno Smith and Drew Lock unless something drastic happens otherwise. Let's move on to the running back position now. No big surprises here. I have Rashad Penny making it, despite what the blogger boys at Bleacher Report tried saying that the Seahawks should cut Rashad Penny. We talked about that yesterday. That's not happening. Kenneth Walker III, DJ Dallas, who's looked really good throughout this preseason, Travis Homer, and then Nick Ballore at the fullback spot, also going to play a little linebacker as well. I have him making the roster. And speaking of DJ Dallas, let's talk about him for a second. He could be Seattle's third down running back. You look at what he's done in this preseason. Against Chicago, he was terrific with 52 receiving yards, and against Pittsburgh, had a receiving touchdown as well as 73 yards on the ground. When you look at, sure, we've seen some injuries already at this running back position. DJ Dallas, I'm excited about to see what type of stability he could bring. Another option to this running back room. To me, he is very intriguing to see what ultimately he's going to bring to the table for Seattle. Moving on to the receiver position now. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, of course. Freddie Swain, pretty obvious as well. But then the next group. D. Eskridge, I know that he hasn't been around for much of the preseason, but he's back this week. I have him making it. And then give me the two seventh-round rookies, Bo Melton and Young, also making it for the Seahawks. So what does that mean? That means that Marquise Goodwin is on the outside, that ultimately he gets cut. And you may be saying, well, Tyler, what are you talking about? Marquise Goodwin signed with the Seahawks back in May 23rd. Why would they sign him just to cut him? Well, it's the National Football League. It happens sometimes. Marquise Goodwin has not played in either preseason game for the Seahawks. Spent some time with Buffalo, San Francisco, Chicago. But, look, at this time, he's not the right fit. He has not taken advantage of this competition and getting on the field like he needs to. I just don't see him making it when it's all said and done. That the Seahawks have seen enough from Young and Melton, those guys, to give them the opportunity, I think, potentially to be those final wide receivers on the 53-man. So, do you disagree with me? Am I wrong on this? I mean, I'm not wrong, but if I am, you can tell me. That's okay. Will Marquise Goodwin make the roster? This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Let me know in the comment section. Type Y for yes, in for no, if Marquise Goodwin ultimately makes the roster for the Seahawks or not. Moving on now, let's talk about the tight end spot. Noah Fant, Will Dissly, obviously. Those two are going to be the 1-2 punch. Colby Parkinson also making it. With that, I have the Seahawks carrying just 3 tight ends. That means that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is gone. I know they just traded for him a couple days ago, but when they made the trade, they were getting rid of Amadi, a guy that they were going to cut anyway. So they gave Arcega-Whiteside another shot, but it just isn't working out. He didn't impress in that preseason game against Chicago. Don't see him making this. They'll roll with the 3 they got there. So with that, today's show is presented by our friends at Mint Mobile. And I got to tell you, Ryan Reynolds and company, I'm so glad they're sponsoring this show today because, we need to save some money, folks. Look, whether you're trying to find Wi-Fi, trying to get to the coffee shop, and you get the receipt, and they give you the Wi-Fi password, and they tell you, oh, wait, sorry, we wrote down the wrong password, and then you can't get the Wi-Fi working. Well, Mint Mobile is here to help, whether it's at the coffee shop, whether it's up in the mountains or the old country roads or the highways, wherever you need cell phone service, these guys have you covered in every way possible. America's largest 5G network. That's pretty big, folks. And plans starting at just $15 a month. That's a deal right there. We're offering it just for Seahawks Today viewers. So why don't you go ahead and sign up now? What are you waiting for? Go to mintmobile.com/chatsports. Get yours now today, whether it's for your cell phone to make sure that you have high speeds wherever you go or using that hotspot for your computer. Mint Mobile's got you covered. mintmobile.com/chatsports. Finishing up with the rest of the offense now. Let's talk the offensive line for your Seattle Seahawks. No surprises. Your starting 5, of course, will all make it with Cross and Lucas as your bookend tackles. And here's an interesting note. I don't know how many people are aware of this. Did you know that Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas will be the 3rd time since 1970 that an NFL team has started 2 rookies as bookends on the offensive line? Fascinating. A little history being made with these 2 leading the way. Then we get to the next group, the cuts, right? And, the Seahawks, they're going to get Stone. They stay with Stoney at the offensive tackle spot. Kyle Fuller, Phil Hayes, and Jake Curhan gets one of those spots as well at the offensive tackle spot. And he's going to be a very good backup for Abraham Lucas at that offensive tackle spot. And that's where I see this group going. Now, there is one thing to think about. The group seems pretty set unless the Seahawks end up releasing Gabe Jackson. Phil Haynes is making a run at Jackson's guard spot, and Haynes is younger, if healthy, just as physical. Jackson could end up in a situation where he wants out if he's not going to be the starter and could free up $6 million. So that's the only way I see there being a big change of sorts. Otherwise, I think that the Seahawks look pretty good as they are with this offensive line group pretty much set in stone. So, with that, now that we've talked about the offense, we'll get to the defense in just a moment, I promise. Madden scaled this for me. Rate the Seahawks offense this year. And because this is Madden style, there's no 100s in Madden. If you're a real one, you know that there's not 100s in Madden. That was the old ESPN NFL 2K5 game, which I liked better than Madden personally. How would you rate the Seahawks offense this year? 1 through 99. Let me know. One way or the other. 1 through 99 on the Seahawks offense. How would you rate it? I'm curious. Tell me. Let's talk defense now. Beginning with the defensive line. And putting forward, Al Wood, Shelby Harris, Brian, those guys are all good there with Ford, Woods, and Harris as your starters. Then the next batch, Miles Adams, Quentin Jefferson, and yes, I have L.J. Collier making the roster for the Seahawks. This has been talked about for months on end, folks, whether L.J. Collier was going to make the Seahawks roster or not. It was widely believed that he was the most likely trade/cut candidate. In fact, even just this week, I'm reading from these folks on the internet talking about the idea of him trading to the New York Giants potentially. But with all that said, he impressed in offseason OTAs. I know the Seahawks declined his fifth-year option, making him a free agent after this year. But it seems like everything has gone right for L.J. Collier at this point, that he should get one of those last spots. So he's not getting cut, if he's not on this roster, it would be because of a trade. But no trade made right now, obviously. So with that, we have him making the 53-man when it's all said and done. So another question for you. Here is a truth or lie statement today. LJ Collier will make the 53-man roster. Seahawks Today believes that he will. Do you agree? Is that true? If so, type T for truth. If that's a lie, type L for lie. Let me know in the comment section below. And if something happens to LJ Collier, who's going to cover it? Seahawks Today is going to cover it right here on the channel. Non-stop Seattle Seahawks coverage all year long. Best part about it, it's free right here on youtube.com/SeahawksTV, including on Wednesday. You want to be here for Seahawks Today live with yours truly. We begin things at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. out on the West Coast, and we're reacting to your questions in real time. And myself, producer Chugs, it's a very awesome affair that you will not want to miss out on. You got to get involved, get active, and it's not even just all Seahawks. I mean, we're talking everything from marshmallows to National Dog Day and everything in between. It's a great time. Seahawks Today. Join us on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on the channel. Let's get to the linebacking core now. I have the Seahawks holding on to 8 linebackers. Brooks, Barton, and Nwosu, Taylor, they kind of lead the way. The young group is what's fascinating with Mafe and Smith, who they drafted. Alton Robinson's impressed so far throughout camp and in the preseason. And then Tanner Muse, I have getting one of those spots, the former Clemson Tiger on that end. So to me, that is interesting to see. Now, one name that I do have not making it is Vi Jones, the undrafted free agent out of NC State. He's looked really good. He impressed in the preseason. I think he's a practice squad guy, though. I think he's somebody that could be on the 53-man at some point this year, but for now, at least he's a practice squad player on that front. Moving on to the secondary, this group is very interesting. Artie Burns, Sidney Jones, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, your kind of top 4, right? Justin Coleman, a part of that bunch. And then I have Marquise Blair making it. And I know everybody's not going to necessarily agree with me on that one, but I like the versatility from Blair. Can play safety, can play cornerback, either one. If you're a guy that's fighting for a roster spot, the best thing that you can bring to the table is versatility. To be able to do multiple things, Marquise Blair can do just that. Led the Seahawks in tackles against the Bears last week with 6. And I know his play has been a little suspect at times, but he's forced 2 forced fumbles in the preseason so far at this point. So something to watch for with Blair with his versatility, if that can be used to his advantage to ultimately make a roster spot. That also means that I have Jackson, the corner, missing as well, and he's impressed so far at this point, but not necessarily I think there's quite a spot good enough for him, but somebody to keep an eye on potentially to still be on the radar for the Seahawks down the line. The safety spots, Adams, Diggs, Neal, Jones, and then Blair as another option as well for those safeties that I'd watch for. Special teams, no surprises. They haven't brought anybody else. They're going to ride with Myers, Dixon, and long snapper Tyler Ott leading the way there. And there you have it. That is our roster projection for Seahawks Today. Of all 53 players, our final roster projection before the roster is officially released. How did I do? Let me know in the comment section. Grade me. A, B, C, D, or F. How you think I did with this 53-man roster projection? I sat down. I slaved away all day putting together this roster projection just for you. If you hated it, tell me why. Let me know in the comment section. Follow me on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live, and we will see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.